Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Skull Session Recruiting Podcast brought to you by BuckeyeHuddle.com. I am Mark Givler. Got Kevin in with me here today. It is a special commitment edition of the Skull Session Podcast. Ohio State has flipped four-star wide receiver Brock Boyd from TCU. Boyd becomes Ohio State's third receiver in the 2026 recruiting class, joining Chris Henry Jr. and Jaden Ricketts. Kevin, this has kind of been on the back burner for a while. He visited in March. It was pretty clear Ohio State was probably TCU's biggest threat in flipping him, but he had kind of went radio silent the last several weeks, so I don't think anyone really knew exactly kind of what he was up to. And then today he decided to make it official and flip his commitment to Ohio State. I guess first of all, just kind of your general reaction, thoughts on this commitment as the Buckeyes get three receivers in the fold now in what will probably be a four-receiver class.
Yeah, I was driving back from the White House festivities and stopped at Sheetz in Maryland about 5 minutes after this came out and was like, okay, I should probably know more about him. Familiar school, obviously. We'll get into South Lake Carroll and everything else in a second. We'll put on his highlights in a second. I'm very impressed with this move. This was not one that I necessarily had put a lot of attention into because, he'd been radio silent, as you put it. And, at some point, okay, you've done the visits and, if you're the team trying to hold on and you can weather the storm, or it appears you weathered the storm, then what? So it kind of came as a shock to me, but I think this is a pretty good pickup.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk with Ohio State kind of around who's going to fill out this receiver class with Henry Jr. and Ricketts. And, Caden Dixon-Wyatt was on campus. The four-star prospect from Mater Dei in California was on campus this weekend. And that's been kind of the guy I think the fans have really focused on the last several weeks. And Brian Hartline, of course, has been recruiting Dixon-Wyatt very hard. And Chris Henry Jr. has been involved in that as well. And the Buckeyes are trying to break that Mater Dei thing. And then kind of Boyd comes out of, I don't want to say out of left field. They'd offered him back in January and they were recruiting him hard, but just kind of, again, the general silence there the last several weeks beats, Dixon-Wyatt possibly to the punch. Not that that's going to cost him a spot or anything like that. That's going to be their top priority now for the fourth spot. But interesting timing and interesting kind of process. Let's throw the film up here on the four-star prospect. So he is really a speed guy. He's almost 6'2". He's about 170, 175 pounds, but he can really run. He's a 21.7 200-meter guy, so he's a really good track athlete. He's really good after the catch, sure-handed. Again, there he is hurdling somebody. So this is a really borderline elite athlete on the outside, and a guy again who can make plays vertically and can do things after the catch with his speed. The areas of improvement are probably just going to be that intermediate route running. We know he can take the bubble screens and make big plays. We know he can go vertical. It's just a matter of, refining the rest of his game and just, being able to run those intermediate routes and make those tough catches maybe in traffic. But as a pure vertical guy, very impressive. Again, probably play on the outside at Ohio State. I know, again, they'll cross-train guys and they'll teach, everyone at some point will probably line up in the slot if you play receiver at Ohio State. But this to me looks like a pure kind of like a Devin Smith, like get vertical and take the top off the defense type of player, coming from a great program at South Lake Carroll, of course, former home of Quinn Ewers. So that was kind of a little bit interesting, ironic kind of side note here. But over 100 catches as a junior, about 1,800 yards, I think, receiving as a junior. So big time production.
Yeah. Apologies for my laundry going on in the background, but he's not playing against, little Timmy out there. I mean, South Lake Carroll plays in the biggest division of college or of high school football in the state of Texas. So, one of the best divisions out there nationally. I put his tape on before we did the show just so I kind of knew what I was talking about. And you're like, yeah, he's fast, but is he that fast? And then guys just can't get the angle on him. He doesn't have like that Ted Ginn Jr., smooth stride, but he just pulls away from guys. So, this is going to be somebody who fits really well into the mold of what Ohio State is going to have moving forward. And yes, just again, South Lake Carroll is a program that I'm very familiar with. My sister actually graduated high school from South Lake Carroll, so I've been watching Carroll for a long time just based on all of that.
Yeah, I think again, Chris Henry Jr. and not that these guys can't do multiple things, but Chris Henry Jr. is your kind of your prototypical big body, move the chains, red zone, that type of thing. Brock Boyd is very much hey, we're on our own 25. Let's see if we can hit something big here. And he's again, I do watch his tape, and just to me, there are a lot of Devin Smith comparisons there. And I know, Devin's kind of a really popular player among Ohio State fans. So I understand it's probably maybe a bit lofty of an expectation, but that is what he reminds me of. He is a guy who can really track a deep ball, can really get behind people in the secondary, can make those plays vertically, and very much like Devin coming out of high school and even in his time at Ohio State, it's like, okay, how well can you develop the rest of the route tree? Like, we know you can get vertical. We know you can take a bubble screen and make something happen. How can you can you get these tough, slants over the middle, these drag routes? Can you be physical in the middle of the field? Like, those are some of the things that I watch his film and I'm like, okay, I don't see a lot of that. That doesn't mean he can't do it. It's just, those are the things I look at. I'm like, okay, let's see if he can do those things as well. This probably, not that he wasn't going to be on the Southern Swing Tour anyway, but this would probably cement him as a priority Southern Swing guy for us to maybe get some more evaluation of him, maybe at spring practice here coming up in May. But interesting. I'm intrigued by it. I think it's a really good pickup. And again, this is going to now turn really all the focus just about to Caden Dixon-Wyatt, the teammate of Chris Henry Jr. at Mater Dei.
Yeah, and that one's going to be, a major pursuit. I mean, it's not a case of, Ohio State's just going to be able to waltz in. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Ohio State certainly has not had a lot of success at Mater Dei through the years for a program that produces more than its fair share of top prospects. Ohio State's been runner-up on a lot of kids, third place even more. So having Chris Henry there certainly is going to help. Programs recruiting against Ohio State for them will be like, well, look, they've already got 3 in this class or whatever. But when you're Caden Dixon-Wyatt, it's not necessarily a case of if you're the 4th receiver to commit to somebody's class that you're the number 4 receiver. That's not, necessarily how any of this works out. But you sit there and you look at all of these guys that could be coming in with 1 year of Jeremiah Smith left, and it's just kind of crazy. And you were talking about the development and maybe some of the drag routes. We did see a slant on the highlights there, but that's kind of one of the things you're getting with Brian Hartline. You're getting that development. I mean, all these guys that have come in, whether or not you've come in already kind of as a unicorn the way that Jeremiah Smith did, or you're somebody who's kind of really had to work it, like maybe like a Chris Olave or somebody like that. The development is, there's no debating that a lot of development happens under Brian Hartline and previously helping out there with like Keenan Bailey and some of these types of coaches.
And to Boyd's credit, like, if you can just throw it 50, 60 yards and get an 80-yard touchdown, you're going to do that over running a slant or a drag or an out. Like, that's obviously the best way to go about it, is if you can just throw a deep ball and get a touchdown. So I'm not, taking away from that. Obviously, if he's able to do that at the height, but it gets a little more difficult than that at the college level you can't get behind defenses all game. Like, there's going to be some development there with the intermediate stuff that's going to have to take place. Some adjustment there to the speed of the game. But again, good size, 6'1 plus, maybe 6'2, 21.7, 200 meters. That's moving. Like, a lot of good physical measurables here. And you go with the production on top of that. And there's a lot to like here. and definitely a guy that Brian Hartline, he offered him in January and has been really kind of put his foot on the gas the last 3 months trying to flip him from TCU. So mission accomplished there. For Brian Hartline, Caden Dixon-Wyatt, again, is going to be the guy that everyone talks about now. That's going to be Ohio State's primary target for the number 4 receiver spot in this class. Obviously, he will not be the number 4 receiver in terms of that. He would be the second highest rated receiver in the class behind Chris Henry Jr. But this is looking like, I think Alabama's in there, but gosh, this is starting to look like an Ohio State-Texas battle. And again, it's just like Ohio State and Texas are kind of finding themselves in some of these battles, and they're playing on the field now. The playoff game, they got the home and home coming up. This just feels like another chapter in like a very competitive Ohio State Texas book that's being written here.
Well, I mean, Texas certainly has a claim to being in the conversation for wide receiver U right now. I mean, Steve Sarkisian is a very great offensive mind, and they certainly have done a good job of developing their wide receivers as well. So, I'm not necessarily surprised. I mean, you mentioned Alabama there. Anybody who watches the show on the regular, the jury is still out on Kalen DeBoer and what he's doing at Alabama at this point. I mean, the floor did not necessarily drop out from underneath Alabama last year, but it certainly was not the type of year that everybody was used to under Nick Saban. And, I think as long as that's going on, what do you do there? I mean, I think that, as much as we talk about Georgia and its recruiting, it was a team that didn't necessarily have much in the way of receivers last year. So, I think Ohio State and Texas are a couple of the, I think you could throw like an Oregon into the mix. Those are going to be your teams that are really kind of getting it done on the offensive recruiting. And again, Brian Hartline can't land them all, but it's hard to bet against him.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing here for Ohio State is that now you're putting Brian Hartline, one of the nation's best recruiters, in a position where it's like, just go get this one guy. He doesn't have to focus on 10 receivers right now. And so if you can take someone with Hartline's recruiting ability and basically tell him, like, just go get this guy, that's a really good position to be in if you're Ohio State. But again, this is a very competitive recruiting battle. Caden Dixon-Wyatt was on campus twice this spring. As I mentioned, he was on campus this past weekend for the spring game. It's a second spring visit. So clearly Ohio State is turning that up, but clearly Caden Dixon-Wyatt's been receptive and having Chris Henry Jr. out there working that. And then, Chris Henry Jr. shutting down his own process, as he says, I think helps that pitch. When I think it's hard if you're Chris Henry Jr. to pitch Caden Dixon-Wyatt on Ohio State if you're also visiting USC and Oregon and all these other places. But when you're shut down and you're like, I'm going to be there, like, let's go with me. I think things are lining up for them to actually make a move here, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm always going to be like a little like leery of like the modern day curse that seems to surround Ohio State. But this looks like they've got a real shot here.
Yeah, pretty much after Rajon Davis, the linebacker from several years ago, didn't end up going to Ohio State, ended up going to USC. I'm like, I'm not picking Ohio State to land any more modern day kids until they land a modern day kid. And for the sake of full disclosure, I don't necessarily consider Chris Henry Jr. a modern day kid. He is an Ohioan. People be like, "Oh, the curse is over." Well, yes and no. He was put there. Mom had him go. Go.
He was committed. I mean, he was committed to Ohio State before he ever
right.
set foot on modern day's campus. So
right. So
yeah, I can't call that one a win in modern day.
But it's going to be interesting because we can go back last year or whatever. There were, at this point of the cycle and even a little beyond, I mean, there were a lot of names still out there, DeCorian Moore, Jamie French, some others. If really it's coming down to put 95% of your attention in Caden Dixon-Wyatt and then the 5% on, whatever else may appear or whatnot, Ohio State's going to have the full court press on. Yeah.
So we will see what happens with Caden Dixon-Wyatt, but another good receiver in the fold for Ohio State. The rich get richer in the Ohio State wide receiver room with Brian Hartline landing 4-star wide receiver Brock Boyd out of South Lake Carroll in Texas, as the Buckeye receivers, Texas receivers to Ohio State pipeline continues. And I'm sure everyone is hoping that Brock Boyd can be even 80% of some of the star receivers they've pulled out of Texas over the years. I think a lot of people would take that and sign that up for that right now. So congratulations to Brock on his commitment. And another big win for Brian Hartline on the trail. And we will be keeping everyone updated on the rest of it. We have Southern Swing coming up shortly. That will kick off in about 2 weeks. We'll be all over the place. We've got a very interesting itinerary again this year, especially with the different states. Ohio State's got some key targets in that it's kind of random this year. So we will be all over the place. I think I have roughly like 7 or 8. It might even be 8. I think I have 8 states right now that we're looking at stopping in terms of actually seeing a player. We'll probably be driving through a couple more than that. But so going to be a loaded couple weeks of content there on BuckeyeHuddle.com. So join us over there. Like I said on Twitter yesterday, it's going to be a very exciting few weeks at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That is a promise. And again, Southern Swing kicking off here before the end of the month. So that'll be part of the excitement at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So hopefully see you over there. But otherwise, thanks again for watching and listening, and we will talk to you again soon.